Hello, BookTube. As you can see, I have a guest. I make many videos. Some of you might not know him. This is David Murphy.
Hi, BookTube.
Technically an active BookTuber. He hasn't made a video in a while. But he's visiting Boston for a long weekend, and we went to the Brattle Bookshop. Got to do that. You'd never been before.
No?
And I was gratified to hear him say that he understands, having seen it, why I would keep going back. It's a pretty remarkable place.
It's not just words. It's amazing.
And we got books. We want to do a dual book haul here. The only problem is, despite the fact that I go to the Brattle every single day, I got more books than he did. So it'd be a little bit lopsided. I want to go through... I got some mass market paperbacks, and I got them all for the same reason. So I thought I'd go through those first to kind of even things out. And we'll go back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
We'll go roughly back and forth. With little glimpses of the bean the whole time. You can see she's completely unimpressed with my human guest. She screamed at first, but after that. So the first 4 books that I want to show you are all mass market paperbacks, and I got them all for the same reason. Some of you will be familiar with the BookTube channel Criminale, he's a great BookTube channel because he reads a lot of garbage. But he doesn't try any mental jujitsu about how the garbage that he reads is actually on some sublime level really good. The way Dude Bro writers do. He doesn't try that kind of crap. Instead, he says it's garbage. He just likes it anyway. And he, to solidify his place as the king of garbage on BookTube, is hosting an event in August. Garbage in August. In which readers, anybody who wants to participate, is encouraged to read garbage. And it just so happened that the Brattle had a bunch of garbage for my consideration. So I got 4 books that I'm going to read in August. First of all, I should say, I know almost nothing about these, so there's only one of them that I know for sure is garbage, because I've read 50 books in the series, and they were all terrible. But the rest of them, including that one, I haven't read that one, and I haven't read any of these others, so maybe there's a diamond in the rough. The first one is by William Rossler, and it's Blackhawk. It's a mass-market novel about the comic book character. The World War II fighter ace comic book character. No idea what to expect here at all. Oh God. That was once upon a time a receipt of some kind. Well, anyway. Then I got Cap Kennedy. This is an old Daw paperback. This is number 12. So Cap Kennedy has had 11 previous adventures. This is the Genetic Buccaneer. Gregory Kern. I'm sure that Ollie would approve of that cover. So would Michael K. Vaughan. That is a classic garbage cover. It's not a big thing. It won't take me any time at all. What else have I got here? Edmund Hamilton. That's a name I know. Classic science fiction author who's not very good. And this is Outlaw World. A sinister super being in a hidden world sets out to demolish the solar system. Is that super being actually Ollie from Criminale? We don't know. Giant marauding apes, and you can see they've cornered a club-wielding human there. Doesn't look good. It doesn't look good at all. And then finally, the last one is the only thing that's closer to a known quantity. It's a Toff novel. When you're talking about garbage, you have to read a Toff novel. This is John Creasy's Leave It to the Toff. I confess, I would probably have left this behind, but I love that cover. Just love it. If the Brattle sale cart shelves were to turn up, I don't know, 20 more Toff novels, and they all had this cover art, I'd probably grab them all. Even though I know already they are absolute garbage. So I got 4 paperbacks for garbage in August, which I'll leave a link to Ollie's announcement video, and I urge you to join us in August to read garbage. But that's my start. I don't think you got any garbage.
No. I guess I'll start with, this is P.J. O'Rourke thrown under the omnibus.
Oh, no.
Yes.
See, I haven't seen a lot of his choices. I yoinked them away from him to pay for them, but I didn't look at them.
I didn't even give me a chance.
No, yeah. Nobody at Brattle gets a chance. There are plenty of people watching who can attest to that.
I didn't even know he had an omnibus. I'll try to show it here.
What's the year on it? They'd all be grateful.
Makes this a little easier to look at.
But you'd be blocking Frida.
But anyway, I didn't realize that omnibus of him, and I have not read him in
look at the size
a while. Yeah, it's pretty big. And I think it has selections from his books, like Parliament of Wars and the like. I guess you would call him basically just doing satire. He's never really worked for me, and I remember people always saying, "Oh, there's more there than you think." You know, it's actually very intelligent and subtle. And every time I went back to him, I just didn't see it. It always struck me as being easy in what he was doing. I mean, that's easier said than done, but it never did work for me. But since he died a month or two ago,
Yeah, he just died.
I do have a reason to go back to.
You're not alone.
Maybe I'll see something now.
Christopher Hitchens and George Will both thought the same thing.
Yeah.
This guy is clever, but this doesn't work for
Mm-hmm.
me. I always thought the same thing too, except for the book Modern Manners. I think Modern Manners is not political.
No, it
and
isn't.
maybe that's the key.
And I will say his book on the Wealth of Nations isn't bad either. There was more understanding there than I anticipated.
Really, a deeper mind.
Yeah,
yeah. I would never.
And so maybe there's something like that in his humor that I'm just not seeing.
Well, you'll get a lot of it in that book.
Yeah, I got plenty of it here, and it's in perfect shape. So, and this was out on the cart. This wasn't an
he
inside
joined
purchase.
me for prowling the carts outside. There was plenty of stuff to see inside, but he joined me outside as well. Well, do I go next?
Yeah, we'll just alternate, I think.
I got a UK trade paperback. I have a sweet spot for UK trade paperbacks. This is Neil Hansen's book, The Confident Hope of a Miracle. A big fat study of the Spanish Armada. The subtitle, utterly ridiculous. It's just, the subtitle is utterly ridiculous. This is not the true story in the sense that all the others weren't. This is the same story, just with lots more detail. I've had this before. In fact, I think I hauled this book years ago on this channel from that I got somewhere else. This is in perfect condition, so I grabbed it. But no other reason than mainly that it's a UK trade paperback. So that's my next one here, where I'm going to put these.
Then mine, I don't know anything about this, but I did read a little bit of it, and it caught my attention. It's Dominion from Sea to Sea, Pacific Ascendancy and American Power. Are you familiar with that at all?
Yes.
Yeah, and
yes,
it does
Where
seem
did you
to
find that?
This
You're not saying
was
that was
also
outside?
Yeah,
Oh
it was
my
outside,
God.
Yeah, and it seems to have a bit of historiography I'm not familiar with. He talks about an Atlanticist perspective versus a Pacificist perspective, and I don't know what that means, but what caught my attention is he's focusing on technological change as it relates to economic growth. That seems to be a theme, and I don't know how well he's going to do that, but it seems like he's going to contextualize that in the Pacific and going west. But we already have a book that does that. It's Empire of Wealth by John Steele Gordon. It does a really good job, so that's going to be in the back of my mind while I'm reading this.
Empire of Wealth sounds familiar.
Yeah.
Do I know that book?
It's an economic history of the U.S. It's very good. And in fact, some IO, industrial organization courses have used it. I know Tyler Cowen used it when he taught as well. It's pretty good. And it's short, too. It might even be shorter than this.
You show the cover.
Oh.
You show the cover for a fraction of a second.
Sorry.
You're rusty.
Yeah.
Is the problem. Interesting. Very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to say, we do have books on that subject, but not from the economic angle. That's
Yeah. Empire of Wealth is it? Yeah.
Empire of Wealth. If you were going to say we had no books on that subject, I was going to stick up for the original Bernie bro, Bernard DeVoto. But I don't need to. Well, I guess I'm up next. What have I got here? Oh God, there's so many. Okay.
Why are you going to the
I want to kind of group mine by theme, but there's no way
now
to do
I have
it.
to do mine.
My next one is Richard Overy. This is The Bombers and the Bombed, the Allied war campaign in Europe. It's a big fat World War II history about the Allied bombing campaign, and the main reason that I got it is because of his new book, which has got an American publisher, and which I just recently reread. One of you sent me the UK hardcover of Blood and Empire, Blood and Ruin, or whatever it's called, and I read it. I read that gift, and thank you very much, whoever it was who sent that to me, and I thought, this is remarkably intelligent writing on a subject that I really know and love. And then I remembered, I was digging in with the American version of the hardcover and remembered that I've never read anything by this author that wasn't remarkably intelligent. It's remarkably quietly elegant. So when I saw this, I grabbed it. This is his other big book. I have a feeling that the new book is going to get him even more attention than this one did. And I remember reading this when it came out, and I remember liking it. There's no way to put it here. I remember liking it, but of course, a book on this subject that isn't a thorough condemnation is not doing its job. The Allies bombed places they knew were not military, and bombed them horribly. Bombed them, not just a few bombs out on the wharfs or whatever, but bombed them into what at the time were called holocausts, just whirlwinds of fire. It's not just places like Dresden that happened to it. It happened a lot. And this book, I remember correctly, I thought it was a little mealy-mouthed on that, which is not it's not a historian's job to protect the feelings of somebody's grandfather. But I might have been wrong. I might have been looking extra hard for that, and so not seeing what the author isn't trying to emphasize. So I'll gladly give this a reread, especially since I'm in the mood for it. Was that you're up next?
Yeah, well, so
oh,
I guess
no.
yeah, I know, and I switched the order because we were doing
We have to
theme.
switch the order.
Yeah, it's
That's
Among
good.
the Dead Cities by A.C. Grayling. This came out in I want to say 2007, 2006, 2007, thereabouts. And I read it not long after that, so it's been a really long time, and this was on my mind because of the other book you hauled, which is why you got that, because I think you talked about it in a previous video, and I was like, oh, I need to go back to Grayling's book, and then you mentioned this book in that same video, and I was like, okay, now I really have to go back to it.
I mentioned that I don't have a copy,
yeah.
and I still don't have a copy.
Exact same thing. He's looking at Dresden, he's looking at the fire bombings in Tokyo, right? Area bombing, of course, but I thought he took a really interesting approach in this because he says, okay, by the standards of Nuremberg, how do you assess this? Right, because we never put ourselves on trial, okay? But if we had, what would that look like? That sort of reasoning. And so I remember really liking it, but it's been a long time. Probably my favorite thing I've read by Grayling.
Yeah. Talk about penetrating and eloquent. Boy, oh boy. Well, it's a great pick.
Yeah, and I think there's also a temptation, and maybe it's in there as well, to be extra guarded because you don't want to be accused of doing any kind of moral equivalence, right? Or you said insulting somebody's grandpa, and so you have to walk softly and do it really
being
intelligently.
awful hard-fisted.
He is, but it's not. It's hard-fisted, but it's not ham-handed. Yeah.
Well, I'm up next, and I have a theme. I'm afraid I bought for a theme. I wasn't trying to, but I did. I got a bunch of books on Roman history. I'm just going to go through a few of those. I got first of all A.J. Langguth. A lot of you have heard me praise this author for his book Patriots about the American Revolution. He wrote a book called A Noise of War, which is about the downfall of the Roman Republic, Pompey and Caesar and Crassus and whatnot, and Mark Antony and all of that. And I just recently read Barry Strauss's new book on that subject and really liked it. And it started to sort of re-tickle my interest in that period. That period is overwhelmingly documented. So I remember loving this book just because I love this author's style, but I don't have a copy. And the last time I saw a copy was, I think, an ebook. I think I saw an ebook on offer somewhere. I don't currently have that ebook. Don't know if anybody could correct that. Perhaps it's impossible. Forgive me, Mr. Spock. I sometimes expect too much of you. That ought to get them going. This is really good. I can't recommend it enough. It's perfect popular history. That's what all the blurbs on the back say, including Doris Kearns Goodwin, who ought to know. I haven't read it since it first came out, so I'll gladly grab it.
Then my next one is The King's Depart. Yeah. The King's Depart, The Tragedy of Germany, Versailles, and the German Revolution by Richard Watt. And again, something I don't know much about as far as the author goes. Sorry about the glare. And it seems like a classic example of, we won the war and lost the peace. Like, it seems to epitomize that cliche. That's my impression looking into it. And another thing that struck me as I was looking into it just a little bit is it seems like a very angry book. He seems to be mad that they lost the peace, and he seems to very much blame people like Woodrow Wilson, and who has two thumbs and hates Woodrow Wilson, this guy. So I think I'll be interested in that.
It's the long shadow of the Peace of Versailles. Did it make Hitler? Did it cause the rise of the Nazis?
Yep.
Killing all the men between the ages of 9 and 90 and salting the earth with their bones would certainly not have given rise to. Oh, sorry. let's just move on.
More Roman history.
Yeah, I've got a lot more Roman history here. I think almost all of this is. I don't know why that is, but I found, for instance, this is book 3 in Ferrero's multi-volume history of Rome. This is Greatness and Decline, and this is the exact same period covered by the Langguth book. This is the end of the Republic. And somebody, bless them, who had this thing, cut the pages. So they read this. This was read. This wasn't just bought for a set. I love to see that. I have only one other volume in this series. There's nothing to show you. There's no Judge Dragon. The volume immediately after this one, volume 4, is simply called Julius Caesar. And it is the best Julius Caesar biography that's anyone's ever written in any language. So it's meant to be part of the series. Ferrero just realized there's no way around it. He has to command the next book. It's all him. He's the reason for it. Ferrero had a lot of success as a popular historian, but that was a long time ago. When did these things come out? I don't even want to know. This is a classic. Oh, he didn't cut the beginning page. 1909.
What a year.
Is when this came out. And these kinds of books written, a century or more ago, have tons more historical detail, tons more sources. They expect that you learned all the primary languages in school. So they are. This will, no offense to A.J. Langmuir, but this will be a much better book on the same subject. So I grabbed it, even though it's a little old. Am I next? Am I doing all my Rowan books?
No, you're
now?
okay. Yeah. Well, now we're on a theme here for sure. And the next three are quite serendipitous because I've been thinking about grabbing them. This one in particular, after reading Stalin's War, because it's it's featured quite prominently in the footnotes. And this is Hitler's Panzers East, World War II reinterpreted. Yeah.
Stalin's War is by Sean McMeekin.
Yes, I should have said that.
On this channel.
Very good book. My favorite nonfiction read of last year. And I was paging through. I just read the footnotes again last week because I wanted to follow up on some things. And this is in there a lot. Maybe a little too much. It makes me wonder what more up-to-date scholarship says, but I don't know. Either way, there's two big points in this book. The first is
show it to them. This thing here. Can you guess it? Number 4 will shock you.
The first thing he says is when France and Britain declared war on Germany, Hitler's attitude actually became quite conservative, and he saw himself as extending siege lines rather than inflicting blitzkrieg. And he says that explains his decision-making, say, around Dunkirk, or having the Panzers Army Group South go south at Stalingrad. That's how he's explaining those decisions in terms of his attitude shift. But then he also argues that Army Group Center is actually strong enough to take Moscow and go further, which is a bigger stretch, I think, than that first part. And I think somebody who splits the difference between the standard narrative and what he's saying here is David Stahl, if anybody's ever looked into him. But I haven't read this before, and I see it in footnotes all the time, particularly in Stalin's War.
What is that
so
edition?
It's about time. What?
What is that edition? Oklahoma. Is that like a reprint? Is that when it came out?
I don't know. I think it's from 1963, if I remember right from the footnotes in Stahl's book. It's fairly old. Maybe it's not as old as 1963. Maybe it's an 1980s book. I might be thinking of something else. Oh, it says 1991. Yeah, I'm thinking of something else entirely.
Right, though. No, this is a reprint.
Yeah, this is a reprint. Yeah.
It came out much earlier.
Yeah, it did.
Did you get that outside as well? Or was that
this was not outside. This was inside. Yeah, it was on a bottom shelf.
How many of these things that I missed? That's what I was wondering.
Yeah.
Well, I've got more Roman history for you. This is A History of Rome by an Oxford Don. And it also doesn't have a dust jacket. It also has cut pages. And it is just full of deep detail. The footnotes have an array of primary sources that a modern history of Rome simply would not cite. They just wouldn't consult them at all. I don't know anything about it. No idea. It was effectively free, so I used a lot of credit today, so I'm happy to read it again. This is the exact same time period. That's the real key point of this theme, is that this is also about the end of the Republic and the rise of a totally different kind of Rome. All three of these books are about that period. 3 different viewpoints, 3 different scholarly angles. 2 of them are a century old. 1 of them is 20 years old. So I just couldn't resist. Well, maybe I'm entering a Rome period. It'd be a lot of fun. I've been in those periods before. All right, back to you.
Mm-hmm. So my next 2 are pretty narrow, as if that last one wasn't. They're almost more operational history than anything. That's true of my last one more than this one, but it's certainly the case. And this is The Gates of Stalingrad, Soviet-German Combat Operations, April to August 1942 by David Glantz. This is also incidentally cited a few times in Stalin's War. And this is about, it says at the Gates of Stalingrad, so we'll go exactly with that. Hitler famously split Army Group South because he wanted to take the Caucasus, and he sent, not half, but let's say half to Stalingrad and half down to take the oil fields. And what he's saying in here is that in reaction to that, he claims explicitly in reaction to that, Stalin decided to make a stand at Stalingrad. And this is a trilogy, and this talks about their initial interactions, and specifically that the Sixth Army was ground down a lot more than you're often given the impression in those initial interactions. Of course, they eventually took more or less the whole city except for a pocket right on the river. But even in the first case there, they were really ground down. And that's something that's important to remember here and with my next book is that I think we fall victim to big numbers. Germany invaded the Soviet Union with what I think it's like 3.5 million troops. But how many of those are from the ages of 17 to 25 or 18 to 27? How many of those are mechanized? That kind of thing. That's a pretty small proportion. And they're in the spearhead of any advance. And what he's saying is at Stalingrad, that spearhead got ground down so much that they were made ineffectual earlier than you would think. So,
do you have the other books?
I don't. No.
And they weren't at the Brattle.
They weren't. No, I looked. Actually,
that has to have been from inside the shop.
Yeah, that was. It was. Yeah, that was. Yeah.
Oh my God. Well, I don't have anything on the regimental level. I've got my next one is a hoot. It's a book called Tiberius the Tyrant. It's in rotten shape, but I'm happy to have it. There was one book in the sale lot that was in rotten shape that I didn't get, and I kind of wish I had. If we go back, I will look for it again. But this is from 1902. This had a paperback reprint, believe it or not. In America, it had a little crappy paperback reprint that I had once upon a time.
It's got to be the most obscure book haul.
Yes. This is all about, it just sifts through the worst case scenarios that Suetonius gives you, takes them as absolute written gospel, and expands on how horrible they were. About, Tiberius's little minnows on Capri, a story that's so revolting that you read it and think, there's no way possible that happened. I want to say your instincts are right. Tiberius was not a tyrant. Domitian was a tyrant, but Tiberius was not. It's pretty tough to be a tyrant if you're not around. So this is pure ad hominem history of a type that does not get written today, except by Bill O'Reilly. So it's fascinating to read. It'll be fascinating to read. Now I own a copy. The paperback that I had was a cheap thing that could not take a reading, and I loved it. I loved just watching it misuse history on every page. So now I have hardcover that'll go on the biography shelf. It is, ironically enough, the only dedicated Tiberius biography that I have. Is he doesn't have the great modern biography that he needs. He just doesn't have one. But, I think that's the end of my row.
I've got one left here. I'll just do it. Okay, so this is another World War II. It's Deadlock Before Moscow, Army Group Center, 1942 to 1943. And
you weren't kidding about this book.
No. So this is just after the Germans actually did try to advance on Moscow and failed, and then the Soviets tried to encircle those panzers who were at the spearhead of our Army Group Center's advance and further away from their troops. And there was deadlock there. They weren't able to destroy Army Group Center, obviously, until much later. So this is dealing with deadlock there. About time she was ignoring me for a while.
I would say that Frida coming forward to be cute like this is going to distract all of you from what David was saying, but none of you were paying attention to what he was saying anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Army Group Center, Frida.
Yeah, Army Group Center or Frida. Which is it? You make your choice. Then my next one, finally, is not Roman history. It's still ancient history. And I'm happy to have it. It's in a series called The Great Captains. I didn't know this series. This is by a Massachusetts boy, Theodore Dodge. And this is his book on Alexander. He did one on Julius Caesar that I would love to have. That's what the Great Captains series is. This is a history of Alexander, but it's extremely detailed. Battle plans, actual troop arrangements, as well as all the rest of the stuff. It's a great biography of Alexander the Great, which has to be a military biography, no matter what. So, and I don't have it. Once upon a time, all of Dodge's books came out in in big fat trade paperbacks in the American book market. I almost want to remember who did that, but those paperbacks were not well made. And they did everything. They did Hannibal, they did Caesar, they did Alexander, and I had them all anyway, even though they were poorly made, and got rid of them one by one. And the Alexander one is one of the ones that I want. I'm kind of surprised, given what I saw out in the sale lot today. I was kind of surprised that this volume is not the Julius Caesar volume. But I'll take it. Absolutely take it. And then you're out of books, so we'll just finish up. I just have one more to go anyway. Yeah. This big thing here. I found this gorgeous thing. All the drawings of Gustave Doré. Not all of them, but huge selections from all the things that he did. Orlando Furioso, Paradise Lost, The Divine Comedy, the Bible. Just all of them in here in all of their glory. Just amazing. It's nice to have them in a bigger page than this. You know, the page size here really helps. It's and it's absolutely delightful. I think this book has the whole of the Rime of the Ancient Mariner, but it has large chunks of everything else. What's the matter, baby? Oh, you can't possibly jump down, baby bean. Where are you going to go? Huh? Where are you going to go? Oh, you do want to get down, though. Let's help you out. Okay, that's as far as you wanted to go. So this just to finish up here, this thing has quotes from the books themselves. Quotes from Gargantua and Patrick Roel or Paradise Lost. It has introductions to the books that tell the story, not of the books, but of Doré's commission to illustrate them. All the stories that are done about Doré are in here. I don't have a biography of Gustave Doré, and the only collection of work I have has no text to accompany it. So that I was overjoyed to find this. It's like David said, I didn't hesitate for a second. I just grabbed it as soon as I saw it. Yeah. As I love this artist. I think he's just fantastic. So that is it. That is our Brattle book haul. Will it be the first of more than one? That would be nice, wouldn't it? The Brattle is open after all. But as you can see, we've got a baby who needs tending. So I've got to find out what's wrong. I think I know. I think she wants to go on a WAOK before the night comes in. But that is it. That was your inaugural Brattle Bookshop haul.
Yeah. I'd go again.
Once again, for the cheap seats, you're affirming that you don't have to be crazy to love the place and want to go back.
No, we just happened to be. Yeah.
Had a wonderful visit there. So
yeah, it was good.
We're going to wrap this up for now, but I'll be back. And this time next year, it'll be time for David's annual video himself on his own channel. So I'll leave a link to his channel anyway, in case you don't know about it and want to look at them. But I'm going to wrap this up for now, and we will see you soon. Thank you, BookTube.
Thanks, BookTube.